And 770 CHQR. Researchers are working to end dependence on insulin for hundreds of thousands of Canadians living with type 1 diabetes. To join us to explain the work as part of Diabetes Awareness Month is Dr. Tom Elliott, Medical Director at BC Diabetes and Principal Investigator. Good morning to you, Dr. Elliott.
Good morning, Andy. It's exciting to be on your show.
We're happy to have you here. Now, you know, if you live with diabetes, you know all about it. But for those of us who are not in the world, can you explain the difference quickly between type 1 and type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, sure. So type 2 diabetes typically comes on after the age of 35, typically often overweight, usually doesn't require medication for a while, just diet and exercise, and eventually medication and insulin. Type 1 diabetes comes on before the age of 35. It always requires insulin and requires insulin for the rest of that person's life. So that's why it's been called insulin-dependent diabetes. It's caused by the body's immune system attacking and killing the cells that make insulin. So that's type 1 diabetes. Comes on young, insulin for the rest of the life.
Type 2, doctor, that's the more common one, I would assume, and it's one that can't be cured, but it definitely can be handled, correct? Are we seeing more cases of type 2 diabetes these days?
Yes, Sue, that's right. Type 2 diabetes is primarily caused by the aging process. As we get older, you know, our hair goes grey, we get wrinkles, our cells die off. And so type 2 diabetes is due to the insulin cells or the beta cells dying off from natural aging. And yes, as long as if you can lose weight, it helps a lot because the leaner and the more physically fit we are, the better our insulin works. So type 2 diabetes responds very well to lifestyle modification.
Those living with diabetes, insulin has been commonplace. It's all they've known. Depending on how old you are, I would think the majority of Canadians, this is it. So tell us about the work that you and a team from Toronto and Vancouver together are working on, and how could we end the dependency on insulin?
So Andy and Sue and all your listeners, everybody knows someone with diabetes. So in type 1 diabetes, I mentioned that the cells are being destroyed by the immune system. So we have a study that is recruiting people with type 1 between the ages of 18 and 35, as long as we can get to them before 100 days post-diagnosis. We know this time is critical because typically at the time of diagnosis, 20% of the insulin-secreting cells are still alive. So what we're doing in this study is we're giving a medication called ustekinumab, which stops the destruction of those cells and hopefully allows regeneration of new cells to avoid the dependency on insulin. So if all goes well, people who get this drug don't need insulin for a very long time, and our wildest hopes, of course, would be that they're cured. So we're looking for any of your listeners or friends of the listeners who might send us a client. We'll fly them into Vancouver and put them up as required at no charge. The study it's called a randomized control study, so it does have a placebo group. So 1/3 of people will actually get a nothing drug and 2/3 will get the real thing.
How big of a deal is this, doctor? I mean, we haven't really had, that I can remember, sort of any sort of massive breakthrough in the search for a cure for diabetes. So is this sort of becoming a worldwide phenomenon, do you know, at this point, or how much attention is it getting?
Well, I mean, everywhere, in every rich country, there are people working towards a cure. Mm-hmm. We think we're a whole lot closer. We did a pilot study 4 or 5 years ago which showed that people could stay without insulin longer. In this study, we're giving higher doses of the drug and we're giving it sooner. And we're very excited. We've had 4 people complete the study, and 2 of them don't require insulin at all. And remember, the odds of getting the drug were 2/3. So just on the very earliest results, we're extremely excited that a benefit really is accruing to the people who receive the drug.
When we look at the technology and the hope ahead to move and make life easier for folks with diabetes, I think we can also look back at the technology. And I know many friends and some family members who use the insulin pump, for example. We have made great strides, haven't we, Dr. Elliott?
Yes, absolutely, Andy. So, living with diabetes, no one would choose to live with diabetes, but if the person or family has access to good advice and the best insulin and the best devices, then we think those people can live excellent lives. One of the big excitements for people who've got established diabetes is what we call artificial insulin delivery, or the artificial pancreas, where an app on your smartphone tells your pump exactly how much insulin your body needs. And that's based on the sugar reading that comes into the phone from the continuous glucose meter. I think everybody's seen these little patches that people have on their arms. That gives a continuous read of sugar. So in the same way you can put your car on cruise control on the freeway, well, you can do that with diabetes as well. So if you've got type 1 diabetes and you're on insulin, then you should, if you don't have access to a pump or a CGM, you should be talking to your doctor about it, because these things are available, and I know they're covered in Alberta.
Doctor, got a text from Roger who says Canadian researchers have been at the forefront of diabetes for decades, from the discovery of insulin to the Edmonton Protocol, and this sounds like exciting research. So it seems that, Canadian researchers really clearly doing and leading the charge on this one, aren't they?
That's absolutely true, Sue. Yeah, 100 years ago, insulin was discovered in Toronto by Banting and Best and their group, and in Edmonton, the islet cell transplantation is big, and so that's for people who've got established diabetes, where we grow up cells, typically from an embryo, and those cells are placed in the person's body and replace the missing insulin cells. So yes, the research is coming from all angles, and no matter at what stage one of your listeners might be in with diabetes, Sue and Andy, we've got something to help them.
Incredible. Crossing our fingers, because I know that, we can get things done here in Canada, and the tip of the hat to you and your team, Dr. Elliott. Continued success.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you, Sue.
This is Dr. Tom Elliott, Medical Director at BC Diabetes and Principal Investigator in this study.
It is 7:17 now.